Okay, hello everybody and welcome to today's webinar with Sunshine Hydro. My name is Emily McFarlane. I'm the Senior Campaign Lead here at Birchal. And just before I introduce the team, I'd like to hand over to Tony for an acknowledgement of country.
Good evening, everybody. I'd like to, on behalf of First Nations people across this country of ours, I'd like to pay respects to our elders and custodians of the lands that everyone is joining us from this evening. I'd like to pay specific acknowledgement to the Balai, Gurang, Gurang, and Taralabang people where the Jandori Gungai project is situated. So on behalf of First Nations people across this country, I welcome you.
Thank you so much, Tony. So today I'm joined by Chris, Michael, Rick and Verpi from Sunshine Hydro. So Birchal's working with Sunshine Hydro on their upcoming crowdsourced funding offer. So this launched today at 1 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. So a few of you might be a little bit unfamiliar with crowdsourced funding or CSF, you might know it as equity crowdfunding, and it's a relatively new form of fundraising here in Australia that allows startups and small businesses to raise capital from a large number of smaller or retail investors, also wholesale and sophisticated investors through an online platform such as Birchal. So instead of seeking funding from traditional sources such as banks or venture capitalists, companies can turn to the general public, and in a lot of cases that can often be their communities, to raise money in exchange for equity in their business. Birchal Financial Services is the licensed intermediary for this offer. I just want to remind everybody that the information and discussion in this webinar is for informational purposes only and should not be considered as advice or a recommendation to invest. So please do your own research and always consider the offer document and general CSF risk warning before investing. If you do need any more information, there's plenty over at birchal.com and you can reach out to us via support@birchal.com. So in today's session, all of the founders here at Sunshine Hydro are going to take us through a fantastic presentation, which will run for approximately 20 minutes, all about where they've come from and what they're looking to do with their capital raise on the Birchal platform. And then we will switch to a Q&A session. So if you have a look at the bottom of your screen, you will see a little Q&A bubble. And if you have a question during today's session, please pop it in the Q&A box as we go along, and we'll answer these during the Q&A time at the end. We're also recording today's session, so if you do have to jump off early, a recording will be sent around. So without further ado, I will hand over to the Sunshine Hydro team. I'll start off with you, Michael. If you would like to get involved, I know that you guys have heard you're on the right side of history. What does that mean?
Oh, good evening, everyone. Yeah, let me introduce myself quickly. I'm Michael Meyer, and I'm the chairman of Sunshine Hydro. And yeah, we've been on this journey as a team for about 8 years now. And what we've really done is solve the thorny problem of what do you do when the sun doesn't shine and the wind doesn't blow. And Chris, who was the co-founder of the company, has spent many years developing a software tool that helps us essentially produce carbon-free energy. So the UN has this term now, it's called 24/7 carbon-free energy. And that is where large projects can produce clean energy 24 hours a day, 365 days of the year. And we're doing this by integrating wind and solar with pumped hydro and electrolysis. And we are a member of the UN Compact, and our projects which we're developing are essentially focused on this space of carbon-free energy and subsequently, or most recently, now on green fuels, which we'll discuss today. But I'd like to hand over to Rick as the CEO. Rick, who we're very privileged to have as our company CEO. Rick's had a career as a startup founder and a angel and venture capital investor, very successful over the last 35 years. And Rick is heading the team, and we're really very privileged to have him. So Rick, I'll hand over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. I appreciate it. So I guess to introduce the team, Michael has not said much about himself, which is really unusual. He's quite the lively character normally, and I can tell you he's pretty remarkable. As a member of the Meyer family, he was a director of the Meyer Family Trust for over a decade. He set up as Queensland's largest or first venture capital fund, CMC Ventures. And he was also a director of an organisation that was considered one of the first or the first high-tech companies to list on NASDAQ in the US. And Michael was a director and head of business development for that company. So he's pretty remarkable in his business knowledge and prowess, but he's also got a passion for the environment, and he's worked very closely with some projects that have gained global notoriety, and he is a remarkable character, and I'm very proud to stand beside him. Chris Baker is the founder of the organisation. Chris is a civil engineer like myself, and he's been working in I guess large infrastructure projects for many years, but he's also been involved in software development. And I actually met him in the US at one stage where my company helped his company get into the US market with this incredible product that he'd produced back then. And the product was known for I guess engineering geometry in particular, but it ended up being used for very large highway interchange design, and it worked probably better than any other product, and still does to this day. He got it into 40-odd countries around the world. I think it was written in 6 or 7 languages, and it's a testimony to Chris that he's had the persistence and the resilience to survive through that. And we're seeing exactly the same thing happen with this product. You do not do what Chris has done without an enormous amount of resilience. When people say it can't be done, Chris says, no, I'm going to keep going. I don't want to give up, and he hasn't, and it's a real testament to him. We have Virpi on the call with us. Virpi has an enormous amount of work in energy over the years. She worked for nuclear plants in Finland, and also worked with E.ON in the energy trading in Germany, where she was involved in the transfer of retail positions across 14 countries, and with an annual value of over $15 billion. So Virpi is our head of green commerce, and we're very proud to have her on board as well. 2 other individuals who aren't here today. Tim Cummings is our head of software development. He works right beside Chris on a daily basis, and he's got a good team of software developers working on the product day to day. And Dan Raymond is our head of projects. So he is also a civil engineer, and he also has enormous experience in infrastructure development, and we're very happy to have him involved as well. And Tony, who is with a group called First Nation Green Energy Group, is in partnership with our company, and in fact Tony's on the board of the Jandori Gunji Super Hybrid project, and we're proud to have Tony available with us. He's also involved, or has been involved, in the Kidston project, which is a pumped hydro project in Queensland. And in that position, he provides workers into that environment, trains them, makes them happy, and we're hoping he can bring some of those workers across to our projects as we develop them. And we're very pleased with that. I spent some time with Tony down at the Telstra National Business Development Awards, and we were there for dealing with the environment, and Tony was there because he's dealing with I think the award was excellence in Indigenous affairs. So my job, I am a civil engineer. I have been involved in this company now for 3 years. My real job is to make sure we don't make any mistakes. And I think as long as I hold true to that, this company can't really go wrong. It's a massive company with a massive opportunity, and my job is just to keep it flowing smoothly. So let me pass it back to Emily. Thank you for that, and you know, I hope you get to know our team better over the years to come. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Rick. I think actually we'll go over to Michael and just to talk about being on the right side of history over here at Sunshine Hydro. What does that mean, Michael?
Well, for us, it's about our core mission, Emily, is to help decarbonize. And essential to that is developing these projects that, as I said earlier, we call super hybrids. We integrate wind with solar with deep energy storage to produce carbon-free energy. Because, as I said, the wind doesn't always blow and the sun doesn't always shine. So our projects and the software that Chris has developed, which he'll be able to show you operating in a few minutes, produces a product which is this carbon-free energy. And a lot of high-tech companies, a lot of companies are now realizing that they have to buy hour by hour match carbon-free energy. And also at the same time, we are producing, as a part of this super hybrid, green hydrogen, and we're using that green hydrogen as a part of producing green fuels, green methanol and SAF for the aviation industry. And we feel that these three things are really critical to the mission to help decarbonize the planet. So that's why when we say we believe we're on the right side of history, we're on that pathway, and it's been an exciting journey, and we're looking forward to delivering on these projects as we move forward.
Thanks so much, Michael. I actually might hand over to Chris. Are you able to talk a little bit about developing these projects that you call the super hybrids and how they work? I know that before that you're the co-founder, obviously, of Sunshine Hydro. And can you tell us how you built the team around you?
Yeah, thanks, Emily. Look, I'd just like to talk a little bit about Rick and Michael to start this off, in that something about them is that neither of them need to be working, really. You know, they could be sitting on the beach somewhere if they so choose, but they choose to work for Sunshine Hydro for not very much. But that's about what Michael was talking about, being on the right side of history. There's bigger reasons for us to be doing this, and both Rick and Michael are very committed to this, and they work very hard, and they are asked quite often to be directors or be on boards and be on other companies, and they've chosen Sunshine Hydro, which I feel very humbled about, that they've chosen this path, and that shows something about the faith that they have in our purpose here and direction and what we're doing. And so I thank them for that. And that approach also applies to other people in Sunshine Hydro as well, that people are putting in a lot of time and way more than the time that we expect them to do for what they've signed up for. So it goes right through the company, that everyone's really committed to what we're doing, and we want to make things better if we can do that. So how we go about this, there's a checklist which you can see here, which is applies to the typical projects that we do. To the Gladstone project, which is the most advanced, the Jandori project, we've done a large amount of these things that are on here. And one of the things that we've talked about a bit more, that we've focused on here, is the green fuels, and that's part of the project. So if you have a look at this chart here, you can see that there's it shows wind and solar energy coming in, and this little symbol here stands for ESOP, the software, that it's making decisions there to distribute the energy to the best place. So this ecosystem will produce 24/7 carbon-free energy. But what we've found is if we focus on this part, where I put this circle, is the green fuel production, which takes in hydrogen and biomass. We found that we could actually start this part of the project early, and by just taking biomass to begin with, which doesn't yield as much fuel as it would if we added hydrogen, but it's a stepping stone, and we can start this project, these projects very quickly in a much shorter approval time frame and much shorter construction, and then it will have cash flow in a 2 to 3 year time frame. And so that can be the beginning then of a super hybrid. And the rest of the project will still continue with its approval process and so forth, but it's a longer pathway to that. And I'll come back later and show you the software running. So I'd like to leave it there just for now.
Thanks so much, Chris. Verpi, I know you've spent your career in energy markets. What made you want to join Sunshine Hydro, and why do you think it's so special?
Thanks, Emily. Yeah, I guess that I've always been wanting to do my career in energy business and in the very sort of leading edge of it. So it's always been doing something that hasn't really been done before, whether it's been around a new way of procurement for large consumers, or whether it's been setting up a community-owned energy retailer in Australia. So yeah, it's always about finding what is the next thing that is going to take things forward, and that's what I enjoy, and that's what I really saw in Sunshine Hydro. But I guess the really important thing is when I first met Chris, and I got to know very quickly, he's got some kind of like a humble ingenuity in him. He's just really intelligent person and created this really great model. So yeah, I guess that was a really important thing. And then when that sort of genius comes together with a really good set of values, that's a pretty good match for me, because for me this sort of I guess making energy in a good way has always been really close to heart. So that's that was important. So yeah, I just had a look at the company and I saw Rick and Michael and their experience, and I thought, yeah, I would like to be part of this team for sure. So yeah, here I am. Really, the question around the sort of super hybrid and why do I think that is a really good idea? I think that it's because super hybrid is not really thinking in silos. A lot of other development is kind of really focused on one asset, and this one is really looking at it as an ecosystem, which is really useful. And then when you look at that picture there, what I'm really looking at and focused on is those long-term contracts. So we have contractual fixed supply, so the price is fixed what we're buying, and then we have a fixed price when we're selling, and that makes that whole business model so much more predictable. So I've been working in energy trading and risk management all my life, and that is a really key point for me in this model. So yeah, that's I guess what I really liked. And yeah, I guess my first question was, can we do it quicker? And I think now this race is answering that question as well, that can we do it quicker? So yeah.
Thank you so much, Verpi. I think that I'll turn to Rick now. Can you give us a little bit of an overview of how Sunshine Hydro actually makes money?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Emily. So we need to go back a little bit to when Chris started. Chris's original goal was to decarbonise, and he's held firm to that. That's our goal across the board. But one of the dilemmas he found was that these pumped hydro stations just were not able to be financed without massive government subsidies. So to come up with a financial model that drives pumped hydro, or a big battery in this case, that was the problem that first was the difficult problem Chris had to look at to change. And as you've heard from Michael and Virpi, what Chris has done is he's added these multiple revenues so that the profitability is multiplied quite significantly to create that financial viability in these projects. So we have a pretty magical solution that really does create, financial viability. It means the projects are higher value. We have the ability to generate revenues around that in the form of project management fees when we're actually building the projects and managing the development of it. We can sell down the projects from time to time. So depending on where we're at, how much capital we need, it gives us a very convenient way of raising funds outside of Birchal, obviously. But it gives us the ability to build that value in the company at the right time, so we can re-inject capital into the next project. So it's not dissimilar to real estate, where you buy one house and then you buy a few more and you keep growing. We have that ability, and because they're profitable projects, we can do very well with that. So we expect to grow the business quite well there. As Virpi said, the green fuel sales and electricity sales are important, so we can clip the ticket on those products. Licensing fees for the technology itself is a revenue stream. It probably doesn't come for some time, so we're not relying on that in the short term, but eventually that becomes quite a cash cow for us. And then we are able to, and we have already started advising other companies. So all of the existing pumped hydro stations around the world, we foresee, or I'm quite keen to see every one of them looking at the modelling that we're doing, and to do that, they really have to consult us to come in with the technology that we have and assess their projects, and obviously we can create fees out of that by virtue of doing the work. So I think that kind of explains how we build the shareholder value in the organisation.
Thanks, Rick. If you can give us a bit of an overview of the green fuel projects, that would be awesome.
Okay, so what's happened in the last, I guess, six months to 9 months is we came across a method to deliver a different product again. So hydrogen is a really interesting product. It's very difficult to ship. It's very difficult to store because it's such a small molecule. And there's a question around what the viability of offtakes might be in the future, because it's such a new product, relatively speaking. And it's difficult to know where it goes and how you can sell it. We quickly came to the conclusion we would prefer to sell it very locally to the project, so we don't have to ship it and we don't have to store it in large volumes. But Chris came across the opportunity to convert that hydrogen into other products. And the two products that have come through, one is green methanol, which you see on this chart, and the other is sustainable aviation fuel. So the beauty of that is sustainable aviation fuel is used by aircraft carriers, and they have to have it in order to decarbonise. So the demand for that is actually quite significant. It's pretty easy to understand. Green methanol is, aviation fuel or sustainable aviation fuel is liquid at room temperature, so it can be shipped very easily and stored. And the methanol is being used in the shipping industry for large tankers and carriers, and they have already started converting their ships to use methanol. And so again, there's a pretty large building up demand for the methanol. And we're using it for other things as well, but these are the two key components. The beauty of that is we can set up a plant very quickly. You know, the large projects that Chris has been talking about can take 6, 7, 8 years to develop. But the green projects that we're talking about, we can bring that cash flow forward quite significantly and produce a plant within 2 to 3 years. And that gives us the ability to create that cash flow. It allows us not to go to the investors as much and ask for more money. We can actually use our own cash flow to build the business. So it's quite an interesting change in our business. And this is the purpose of the Birchal raise, is to allow us to take advantage of this particular opportunity. And it really does help us quite a bit.
Thank you so much, Rick. And I might hand over to Tony. Why did you form the First Nations Green Time Energy Group, and why did you partner with Sunshine Hydro?
Oh, you're on mute, Tony.
Tony, you've gone on mute.
Here we go. Here we go. Well, look, we thought it was necessary to form the First Nations Green Time Energy Group. You know, we'd been thinking about it for quite a while. And I guess when we came along and met with the Sunshine Hydro team, I think we immediately saw some really close synergies, particularly with the Jandori Gungai project, which incidentally, you know, when translated to the local Aboriginal language, means spirit in the water. So being involved, as Rick mentioned previously, we've been doing some extensive work through my brother and I, other business arm, with providing Indigenous workforce solutions for the Kidston project, a little bit west of Cairns. So we knew we could bring that opportunity to as a synergy for this project. But the thing that really stood out for us after having the initial meetings was the integrity of the team. The strong commitment was evident around Sunshine Hydro wanting to form very, very strong Indigenous partnerships, and you know, going into not only just providing employment opportunities, but providing true equity partnerships in their projects. So us becoming a shareholder in the project is a significant step forward for First Nations people, you know, in this country, not just only for First Nations Green Time Energy Group, but for First Nations people in this country. If you look at some of the other sectors that have gone before us, such as mining, where a lot of the activity happened on First Nations country, First Nations people were left right out of that opportunity in terms of long-term wealth creation. So we immediately saw that the team was very, very committed to bringing about through clean energy projects the opportunity for First Nations people to be involved as true equity partners. So that was one of the reasons why we actually moved forward with the partnership. And we also see that, you know, the team is very, very innovative around doing the modelling to be able to have us become significant shareholders in the project. We see other countries such as Canada with some fairly advanced models that are supported by the Canadian government. We believe that the Australian government has a long way to go in terms of that support for First Nations engagement. But we see that the Sunshine Hydro team is very advanced in their thinking around introducing First Nations groups and communities into these projects.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Tony. I think that concludes the formal presentation of the evening. So thank you so much. That was super, super insightful. And it was great to see a lot of the background of the business, and I'm really excited to get stuck into some great questions. We've already had a great one come through in terms of your fundraising strategy for achieving your goal of raising up to $80 million in the short to mid-term. Can you give us a little bit more understanding around, you know, the shareholder price and where you're going with that strategy?
hang on, sorry. Michael, you're on mute.
Oh yeah, Michael, you're on mute. You might need to.
I'm on mute. Apologies. Yeah. Oh, okay. I'm on it now. So as some of you may have seen, the offer document went out for the Birchal raise this afternoon, and it's priced at $1.40, and we're raising up to $1 million. At the same time, if you've seen the offer document, we allude to the fact that we're working currently on what's referred to as an A round, and an A round typically is a larger round of capital that comes from more institutional type of investors, high net worth family offices, and we're in the process of putting that together, and actually we will be going out to market. We haven't set the final price for that. The question alludes to it. Yes, we think the price will be above the $1.40 price. We haven't finally set it. We're literally in the process of working with our investment bankers on it right now, aiming to be out talking to investors from probably the beginning of June, and that process will be ongoing. And that'll bring in, we're looking for long-term investors who want to grow with the company and give us the degree of capital that we need to execute the portfolio of projects in addition to the raises that we're doing currently.
Thank you so much, Michael. Really appreciate it. We've had a question on which share registry you will be housing the shares under.
It's a public unlisted company, and the shares are actually held by us, but through the CAPE platform. Yeah, it's not on a listed exchange. It's not on the ASX or any other exchange. It's a private company from that perspective.
Perfect. Thank you. And how do you envision communicating with your investors going forward? I know this is your second equity crowdfunding raise. So what's your strategy with communications?
So we've tried to keep pretty regular communication through the shareholders today. We've probably averaged a shareholder communication once every month and a half on average, but that doesn't mean we haven't had 2 or 3 months where we haven't, and sometimes we've done it every month on a regular basis, depending on the news that comes through. We just did a survey that was organised to ask our investors what they want. So we've talked about doing a quarterly, a quarterly shareholder online event, so we can answer questions and talk on a more regular basis, face to face. We haven't done that in the past, but that's something that we're discussing at the moment. And we think the feedback came from the survey that people wanted to hear from us once a quarter. So we might increase that a little bit, but that was the feedback that we received. So we need to consider that.
Thanks so much, Rick. So can you give us a little bit of an insight as to what the price was in your last CSF round and what influenced the price in this round?
Sure. So the previous round was at $1. We didn't have the green fuels project, so we couldn't add that value to the system. And that's been added, so that's sort of pushed up the valuation quite a bit. These projects are quite valuable. They're a very good investment from a return on investment standpoint. So we need to acknowledge that. So the difficulty was how do we target the future round, which we are targeting at $1.80, but we haven't finalised that at this point. But that's kind of the target we're looking at. We did the previous round at $1. We've pushed it up to $1.40, which we've gone through valuation pretty carefully to do that. The $1.80's a reasonable number for what we're trying to accomplish, and we really haven't come to ground on that. But at the $1, if you think about the shareholders that came in at $1, and you put yourself in their frame of mind, they like to see an increase in share value, which they're getting a pretty significant share value increase in this case. But we also have to look at the shareholder at the other end at the $1.80. So for them to come in and say, well, we did this at $1 and we're going to increase that a very small amount, they would say, well, hang on a minute, then you're not valuing the green fuels correctly. So why would we come in at $1.80? You know, it doesn't make sense for you not to increase the value. On the other hand, the shareholders that came in for $1, if they saw us coming in at $1.80 later, they said, well, why did you do another round at such a small value? So it was a function of just assessing all the pieces along the way and coming up with a solution that satisfied both the investors coming in the next round and the investors that came in the previous round. And that's how we came up with the $1.40, and that's how we're chasing the $1.80.
Well, thanks so much, Rick. So you mentioned earlier that going with biomass only can see cash flow in as little as 3 years. Are you able to unpack a little bit around what that looks like for the remainder of the project as far as timing for additional revenue streams and when they'd be expected to be cash flow positive?
So as soon as the project's commissioned, then we do have significant revenues coming in, and we have modeled that very carefully. So the work that we're doing for the next round is far more detailed than what we're allowed to put in the Birchal documents, as far as forecasts. So we haven't been able to share those details, but Michael, I guess if you could talk very vaguely or very
I think
talk about average project values and revenues, that might
be. Like I won't talk specifically. It's a good question. So the green fuels, as Chris mentioned this earlier, initially we're looking at the production of green fuels from biomass only, right? And what we've been doing and working on is sourcing the sufficient, sustainable and certifiable supply of biomass. And by that I mean we're not damaging the environment, we're taking timber waste and things like that. So we're in the business currently of sourcing those sort of long-term supply agreements, and then we're already have begun talking with potential off-takers for the methanol. So we're in a quite unique position. There have been some quite big projects announced in Australia for green fuels. We're doing it around what we think is a very scalable size, and we've been working on that, Chris, haven't we, quite intensely over the last 12 months. We have someone on the team who's built plants like this very successfully, on time and on budget. And we've scaled solutions, and you'll see in the offering document, we focused on our first one. You saw the slide in Gladstone area, and we have one in northern New South Wales. And we're in this sort of sweet spot between we're in the process of sourcing the supply and we're in the discussions with potential off-takers. And there is a global price today for green fuels, even though it's a very small amount. But you can go out and you can see what the market is currently for green fuels, be it green methanol or green sustainable aviation fuel. And so we're in a quite sweet spot in what we've been doing, and the team that's been working on this is probably as qualified as any in the country to be delivering on the sort of projects that we're working on. Chris, you might like to add something around this about them.
Look, because it's a smaller project than what we're talking about, it's not a large integrated project. The planning process is quite clear cut and straightforward, and is something of the order of a year. And the construction process is quite quick. These modular parts that make up this plant, which can be built in the factory and then brought to the site, and there's not a lot of work to be done on site, so that makes it quick to be able to construct. And I'd just like to mention Michael referred to him there quickly. Kevin Peakman is a chemical engineer, and his experience and his skills are in value engineering and being able to take parts that are readily available and make a really economical plant at a small scale that can be repeated. And we're really, really blessed to have Kevin on our team to be able to do that.
Chris, could you also just discuss, I guess, the value, because we're building an ecosystem that can produce hydrogen at a low cost, how does that put us from a cost standpoint against competitors in the market?
Maybe I can talk about it in that to begin with the biomass only approach, we get a certain amount of ethanol from the biomass, and then by adding hydrogen to that, we get almost double the amount of methanol from the same amount of biomass. And we see this is going to be quite important in the future for it's kind of like insurance, I suppose, on what you make the methanol out of if the biomass competition is high, the production of hydrogen to increase the methanol output is quite a valuable kind of insurance policy. And the hydrogen, Rick was referring to the ecosystem approach. In a way, hydrogen is a byproduct of the super hybrid, because our main proposition is to electrify everything, and then whatever we can't, we use green fuels for. But the electrify everything part is important. For the super hybrid is really producing electricity, 24/7 electricity, like you would get from a nuclear power station. And so that's quite valuable. And the hydrogen production, the hydrogen plant, let's say, with its flexibility, plays an important role in making that resilient, that 24/7 carbon-free energy really resilient. And so the hydrogen business gets rewarded for those other services that it provides. And we see that as quite important in keeping the price of hydrogen down, because the hydrogen plant is not just making hydrogen, it's making a very important contribution to grid stability and resilience for these projects.
Thank you so much. So obviously it's a green energy solution. What does the future look like for government grants, and is there a pipeline for this?
Good question. We're happily in the situation, Sunshine Hydro. So Chris's innovative software, which we call ESOP, has already qualified for the federal R&D program. It's the only tool like it in the world today. There is no integration tool that behaves the way it does. And also the projects, the pump hydro project that Tony referred to, and the one at Gladstone, which we call the mini super hybrid, because they're innovative, because they're the first of a kind, we're happily in a position where we do qualify for the R&D grants program, Emily, and that's we hope to build on that, and we'll continue to invest in the R&D side of the business. And that's been very, very beneficial to us. And even the first green fuels, when integrated, like Chris just described, when you integrate the hydrogen molecules from the electrolysis and you combine it with the green fuels, that will be a world first. And when it's calibrated with the software, which again, as Chris mentioned, we're able to trade the electrolyzer as a tool. And all those parts coming together, and Chris used the words advisedly, this ecosystem, it is an ecosystem. And at the same time, we have also applied just, when was the week before last, Chris? We put a grant into the New South Wales government. The New South Wales government had a $100 million grant program, and we have applied for a quite significant grant for the New South Wales Greenfields project. So we are actively looking at grant programs and are continuing to do so.
So obviously communities are really big part of your business and inspires a lot of things that you do. Is that a main reason why you came through crowdsource funding?
Well, can I speak to something to that? That's certainly a really important part of it, because we want the community to play a part. You know, community was involved right at the beginning, at the very genesis of this whole idea of sunshine hydro and doing that, the pumped hydro. I was living in a community, you know, an intentional community, and we started looking at, could we use a very mini pumped hydro project to help that community. And then in those days we had a steering committee set up at Yumundi for looking at this, you know, that project. We weren't able to progress that, but I'm just mentioning that because to say that community has been at the roots of what we've done all along, and it just feels like it's wonderful to have a large number of shareholders from the community to, you know, to come along on the journey with us, and, you know, and to be advocates for what we're doing. And this it also includes Tony and his team. You know, that's a very Tony takes a really community approach to his employment, you know, and training business. You know, a lot of the people that that Tony's trained, it's transformed their lives, and this is part of also, you know, it all ties together. There's a really strong community involvement in what we do.
Thanks so much, Chris. And it's very clear how much the community means to your business for sure. I've got another question. Being almost exclusively intellectual property based until the generators are built, how are you handling data and network security? And are significant IT security costs considered in your forecasts?
Chris.
Look, for now, it's not a significant cost for us. And Tim Cummings, our software engineer, is very diligent about security, and has set things up to protect against that. But indeed, as in the future, though, we will have bigger demands on that if when the software becomes a guiding tool for the operation of this equipment, that, you know, cybersecurity will become a much greater consideration for what we do. And so it is in our plans to you know, protect our interests from those threats.
So I couldn't find my unmute button. So a question for Tony: how important is Sunshine Hydro to the Green Time Energy Group? And are you working with other providers or startups?
Look, the answer is very important. As I explained before, this partnership gives a great opportunity for First Nations people to build long-term intergenerational wealth through major projects on country. It also enables First Nations groups to address quite a vast range of social issues as well in the process, combining the two together. Look, I guess one of the visions for First Nations Green Time Energy Group is to become a broker and to assist other traditional owner groups in particular that have project proponents wanting to undertake projects on their country, using the experience and the opportunity that we've gotten through this partnership as a way of assisting communities where clean energy projects are earmarked for development on their country. You know, there have been quite a number of Indigenous communities that have approached us already, including our own community up in Far North Queensland, about how they can utilise our experience to develop on a smaller scale things such as microgrids that will power the smaller communities that will enable new types of electricity to power their communities. So it is very, very important, and we are starting to have the conversation with other First Nations groups. There is, to give you some more awareness on what's happening at a national level in Australia right now, there is a peak organisation called the First Nations Clean Energy Network, which provides a range of resources and is a voice to government and to the private sector around First Nations involvement in projects, and particularly the big focus around how to consider protecting the land on which projects are happening.
Can
Thanks.
I add a comment here, Emily, that Tony referred to it just earlier, and that is that there really isn't and hasn't been the mechanism, well, there isn't the mechanism in Australia for people like Tony, traditional owners, to take equity stakes. The projects that we're undertaking, they're significant. The wind, solar projects in Australia, they're significant projects. And there really isn't a mechanism. In Canada, there is. The Canadian government has basically set up an Indigenous bank. So if Tony was in Canada, he could go to it and say, we've been offered an option for 20% stake in this first project. We'd like to draw down a loan for a certain amount so that we can take up the option, and then we'll have that stake, as Tony says, intergenerationally. So in a sense, we've pioneered a mechanism. So as a part of, I referred earlier to the A round that we're talking about, the larger amount of capital. A part of the use of those funds that we'll raise will be to basically monetize the interests that we've created for First Nations green time. So it's a groundbreaking model. It hasn't been done elsewhere in Australia. We're very proud of the fact that we've created this long-term partnership, and I think it is a characteristic of what we're doing. It's a significant point of difference. You know, if you look at any other development, you know, all the wind projects around Australia, you won't find one. No, sorry, I'll correct myself. There is one proposed in the northwest of Australia at the moment where Indigenous group will have equity participation. But I'm not aware of any others where the First Nations has formal equity participation. Obviously, there's things like license fees, and there has been in the mining and the oil and gas sector. There's job creation. You typically do your cultural heritage study on country, all those things. But that's qualitatively and quantitatively different than having actual ownership.
And Michael, can I just add to that? Look, from my experience and First Nations Green Time Energy Group's experiences, we are now getting, through the partnership, we are now getting the ear and serious engagement with the likes of the National Australian Infrastructure Facility, which is Northern Australia Infrastructure Facility, I should say. So we're in serious conversations with that organisation, and they have a large responsibility for providing the support and funding for major projects like ours in the northern part of Australia. In fact, they were one of the main contributors to the Kidston project that we've been talking about, you know, to the tune of $600 million. So, you know, we're getting some serious engagement from groups like that as well.
Thanks so much, guys. And Chris, I know you haven't done a demonstration of the ESOP, but would you be able to show us that?
Yes, I'm glad you asked that, Emily. I realised we hadn't, so thank you for that. Has that come up?
Yeah, you can see that perfectly.
Okay. So this is a live model as though the Jandori Gungai project was actually running in the energy market today. This timestamp here is 1820 on the 24th of April. So that's the interval in in the national electricity market. The price per megawatt hour is $211.52. And this is a live feed of some wind farms. If I click on that, it shows which wind farms are contributing or would be contributing. We've used these as surrogates, these wind farms data as surrogates for what could be contributing to this project. So that's 430 megawatts coming in of wind. And then, oh, look, it's actually changed while we've been watching it. This is interesting. Now the price is 144. It was 200 and whatever I said it was, over $200. And the decision making is that it's no longer worth running the hydro. It was it had, I believe it had been running for a while at 600 megawatts, and now in over the 5-minute interval it's shut down. And now some of the wind energy is still going to the market, but just a small amount, 84 megawatts. A moment ago, you know, in the previous 5-minute interval, it was over 600. What's over here is the hydrogen electrolyzer, and no energy is going to that. And this shows how it is selectively shut down or operated from time to time, depending on the best use of the energy. So this spare, let's call it spare energy, the 84 megawatts, can go to the market. I just want to point out this part here is the 24/7 carbon-free energy, the 300 megawatts. That's always delivered. This is its main objective, to always deliver 300 megawatts, 24 hours a day. And so the software looks ahead for 7 days, looking at the weather forecast to see how much water needs to be kept in the upper dam, in the upper reservoir, so that it can provide for that. I'm conscious of time. I think that might be about as much as I can say, Emily. Is that how close?
We've got a couple of minutes left, but I've got time for just one last question. So does the AEMO see this total system as a peak load power station?
Well, it operates as both. It operates as a baseload power station in that it chooses the best place to put the renewable energy, and by sometimes pumping and sometimes generating, it can always make sure there's 300 megawatts. And as you would have seen a bit earlier, it was peaking. It was putting 600 megawatts into the system. And if we look at a chart, we have a chart, and if people are interested, they could send me a note. We have a chart of this project running in over in January, as though it was running, and the shape of its production is a flat baseload plus peaking at the peaking time. And it's very similar to the same energy that comes from one of the Callide units, plus Braemar peaking plant. So it produces a similar output to a baseload station plus a peaker.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. So I think we can wrap up there. Thank you so much to the whole Sunshine Hydro team for such an insightful presentation. And thank you so much for everybody who has joined this evening. We really appreciate it. So as I've mentioned earlier, a recording of this video will be sent around to everybody who registered in case anybody did miss out. So the offer campaign is currently live on the Birchal platform for Sunshine Hydro. If you didn't express interest, you can still invest now during this private offer period by requesting an invite when you jump onto their profile. So thank you so much for everybody. Appreciate it, and we'll chat to you all soon.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks for coming. Bye.
Thank you.